Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Shahab and welcome back to our series from mouse to AI agents. In this video, we are going to start expanding our Next.js application. We are going to actually connect it with another type of backend system to be able to run more computationally intensive tasks. And for that, we are going to use Python. So another backend for our Next.js app, but this time it's a Python backend system. And the reason that we are using Python is very clear. Python is great for different types of analysis. It has mature, powerful libraries for geospatial analysis, and why not using that? So you will see that how you can connect your Next.js app with a Python backend system and take advantage of all those great libraries in Python for different types of analysis. And this is very important to have a backend system that is capable of doing, computationally intensive tasks like image processing or advanced vector analysis. And Python is great for that, and it's easy. So let's see what are the main components of this new backend system. Let's quickly review what we have so far. We have a Next.js app. It has a front end and a back end. In the back end, we have the main API of our LLM. In the front end, we have some basic vector analysis functions that we built using turf.js. We also have some functionalities, some utility functions for our LLM because we have a chatbot and we need some functions also in the front end. So that's pretty much everything that we have in the Next.js app. But as you see, we have so far implemented just some basic vector analysis because they are running on the browser, and it means that browsers don't have enough resources and they're not performant for advanced vector analysis or any advanced analysis. So this means that for those tasks or applications, we need to do all those things in the backend. But sometimes you don't want to do advanced analysis like advanced vector analysis using JavaScript or the backend of the Next.js. And you may want to do that in Python. So how can you do that? How can you have a backend using Python and then connect it with your Next.js app? This is what we are going to do in this video, but let's quickly review what this looks like. So for that, we need to have a Python API, and this is where we are going to use FastAPI. You'll see what it looks like, but this is a framework that helps us build applications using Python and then connect other external applications to these functions. So those applications like our Next.js app can call those functions externally. So in this framework, we will have advanced vector analysis functions and also advanced image analysis functions. So when I say advanced, I mean computationally intensive functions. Okay, for example, in terms of image analysis, it could be a large raster image, for example, Landsat image, and then you may want to classify it, or you may want to calculate some indices on it. So for those applications, all those data are sent to the backend, to the Python backend, and all those calculations happen inside in here. And because Python has very mature libraries for different types of analysis, data science, geospatial analysis, it's actually going to be much easier. So we will have NumPy, scikit-learn, GDAL, Raster.io, GeoPandas, and so many other libraries that we can use. And as you will see, building such a backend for our Next.js app is very, very easy. As you may know, you can have multiple backends. You can have one backend in one language or framework, another in another language or framework, doesn't matter. As far as your needs can be obviated using your backend systems, that's fine if you have multiple backends. So in this video, we are going to build our FastAPI. We are going to add a Raster-based analysis, which is NDVI calculation. And the way that it will work, as you will see shortly, the user imports an image into the app, and then it will send to the backend, to this backend, to the Python backend, and then the NDVI is calculated, and some statistics of the NDVI calculation will be sent back to the Next.js app. And then in the next video, you will see how we can actually get the results back from the Python backend in our Next.js app. So now let's import an image and see how it works in practice. I just click on this button and then I import the image that I want to get the NDVI for. I select my image and then I can see its size, and then I import the selected image. Now the selected image is imported. Then I go to the tools that I have, and then you see that we now have an NDVI analysis tool under the raster tools. So I click on it. Then here I just select my Landsat image. So my Landsat image has less bands, but we don't care for this example. Let's select 4 and 5 as the red and near infrared bands. It's not correct, but let's select that and then calculate. And then you see the results that are shown here for the NDVI, some stats, okay, for the entire image. So these are coming from the Python API. And now, as I said in this video, we are going to build the Python backend. And then in the next video, we are going to see how we can get the response back from the Python API to our Next.js app. So let's take a look at the Python API code. To build our Python API or Python backend in this case, we are going to use FastAPI and UVcorn. So FastAPI is perhaps one of the fastest ways that you can build APIs, Python APIs. And then the UVcorn is used to run the server or the framework or the application that we have built using FastAPI. So we also use Python multipart for handling file uploads. And then we also use Raster to read the satellite imagery. So this is perhaps one of the easiest high-level libraries that you can use to work with satellite imagery. And then we have NumPy that we use for everything, either directly or indirectly. So let's see what are the files that we need to create. We first need to create a folder containing the APIs or Python APIs or Python scripts for the API. And we call it Python-API. And then under here, we have a couple of files. First of all, we have the requirements file that actually, as you can see here, it contains all the libraries that we need. For now, we only need these libraries, okay? So what I generally do, and this is the best practice in general, is to create a VM for your Python, a virtual environment, and then not use your system-wide Python installation. So for that, let's see how you can do it. You open up your terminal. The first thing that you need is to just create the VM. And then if you are on Windows, if you are on Mac or Linux, you can activate your Python virtual environment using this function or command. And if you are on Windows, you can run this one. Okay, so it might be different depending on if you use a PowerShell or the Windows terminal. And then after activating your virtual environment, you go to the Python, you make sure that you go to the Python API folder, Python-API folder, and then install these modules. So for that, you need to run this command. And then all these are installed. So let me clear these. And now we are set up to go to the other files and build them. So to build a FastAPI API, the first step is to create the entry point of the API, which is the main.py. Let's go through this main file and see what we have. So we first import some methods from the FastAPI, and then we also import the routers. The routers is actually one of the packages that we have created. I will go through that later. But the first thing is to just initialize the FastAPI object. You can see it in here. But this is very important. This is the origin. This is where the communication should happen between the Next.js app and the backend, which is in this case our Python FastAPI. And then we need to specify to what port our endpoint it's need to, or the FastAPI is going to communicate with. So this is where you have to specify the localhost and the port that your Next.js app is running on. So the next thing is to just add the middleware, and we just add the origins in here and then the credentials and anything. So something that we also specify in here is the HTTP request. So for now we just include all the HTTP requests, but you can, in prod, you can just change them if you want to. So nothing really special in here. But I think that the most important part perhaps is in here, where we need to specify our endpoints in our API. So I will talk about this shortly, but this is where we tell if the user requests, or if the front-end Next.js app requests an NDVI calculation, where that request should go in our backend API, Python API, okay? And then we specified in here. We'll quickly go through that in a moment. And here you see that we have a decorator, a Python decorator that has a .get. It's actually an HTTP request. Okay, so you see that how simple is it? And then we say that, okay, what should happen if the user brings up the URL that the server, the FastAPI server is running on, what they should see when they go to that address. Okay, so this is it. And then this is the root, as you can see in here. And then when they open that root folder, or sorry, address or path, they will see this message. Let's open it and see what happens. We first need to run our server. So let's see how we can run our server. As I said, the way that the server, or in this case, the FastAPI app that we have is going to run is based on UVcorn. So we need to run the UVcorn with this command, UVcorn main app, which is the actually entry point, and then reload, which means that if we make some change, the actually app automatically reloads it and updates, and then the host, and then the port. Okay, so this is the port that the UVcorn runs our FastAPI app on. Make sure that you are already in the Python API folder, otherwise the main.py file is not found. Okay, so let's run it. Now the UVcorn is run, our server is running, and now we can go to this address and see actually this message that we have in here. Okay, so I put that in here, and now you can see that we have all the messages that you see in here. Okay, so when you go in here, it returns these. That's it. So simple. And now let's go to the routers. On the routers, we have file named analyses.py. Let's open it and see what's in it. This is actually where the request that the user sends, for example, the user says that I want the NDVI to be calculated on this image in the front end. Okay, so the user uploads an image, and then they go and then they click on the calculate button for the NDVI, and then what should happen after that? Okay, so the request should be received by the backend, and then it should be processed. So let's see how this works. So when the user sends, or the front end sends, Next.js front end sends a request for calculating NDVI, it actually comes in here. Okay, so the address comes in here. So the request comes in here, and we need to specify that in the main point. Okay, so in the main point, it's actually a route. So we have had routes in the Next.js app. So these are just API endpoints, and then we need to specify it. Okay, so this is where we specify the analysis route in here. Okay, so we have a routers folder. Inside this folder, we have an analysis file that you can see in here, and in here we have a function which is actually an endpoint that accepts post requests. Okay, so if a request for calculating NDVI comes to the system, it actually goes in here. So how does it work? So the URL might be something like this, okay? So for example, 000 like this, analyze NDVI, and then something like this, okay? Okay, so you see that this is the address, or actually it should be like this. This is actually the server where our FastAPI app is running on, and then the analyze is the route that we have in here. And under analyze, you can have different types of analysis. It could be NDVI calculation, it could be water detection, it could be anything, okay? Any types of analysis, okay? And then under it, we have NDVI, which is in this here. So when there is NDVI, when the FastAPI sees such a request, it knows that, okay, this should be sent this function, okay, or to this endpoint. It comes in here. Let's forget about these parts for now. What do we have in this endpoint? We have an image file. So this function, this endpoint, receives an image file, and this image file is where it's coming from the front end, where the user imports an image, okay? And then you see some actually annotations or type validations in here, which are coming from the FastAPI. Now also we have arguments for the selection of the red band and near infrared bands. So we also get that in here, and you see that we validated, or we specified that it's a query, it's coming from the query, and the query is actually in here. Okay, so this is the query part of the request. So we say that there is a red band, what number it should be, and again another argument, which is the near infrared band, and then the number. And you see that we also validated in here, it should be greater or equal than 1. Okay, so very simple. So the request comes in here, all the validation is done in here, everything, when everything is passed, we'll read the image, okay? We'll read the image, and then we'll get the bytes, okay? So the raw data of the red image. And then if it's empty, we say that, or if it has any issue, whatever, we raise an error. We now send it to the main function where the NDVI calculation happens, okay? And that's where we need to go to services, where we have raster operations, okay? So we'll change these later, but for now, to simplify things, this is where all the raster operations are done or processing. And we have the calculate NDVI from bytes, okay? And bytes is just the raw image, okay, which is in bytes. So for this function, now we have or we open it or read the image using Raster.io, as I said. So the raw image is read using Raster.io. We'll get everything from the image, different bands and things like that. And you see that we use memory file, and the reason is that the image, actually the object or the bytes image, is on memory. Okay, so Raster.io by default doesn't need a memory file, because in general it reads it from the disk. But because right now we're not storing the image that the user has imported anywhere, it's actually on the memory of the server, on the RAM, we need to somehow create a virtual storage for it. And that's what it does using the memory file. We read the image, and then we extract the red and near infrared bands. That's it. In here we calculate the NDVI. We just make sure that the NDVI is between -1 and 1, and then remove the null values, and that's it. Okay, and then finally we just calculate some statistics for the NDVI that was calculated in here, and then you see that we return it. That's it. Any error that we get in here, we actually have an exception for, and then this exception returns or throws an error. So this is everything that we need for the backend Python API to calculate the NDVI and return the statistics. That's it. So nothing else. You see that in just a couple of lines and files, we set up a Python API in our app, and then now we can actually communicate with it very easily from our Next.js app. So in the next video, we're going to expand it. We're going to see how we can actually get these results back from the backend, and then how we can show them on the UI on the client side. And later we'll also see how you can actually send the NDVI image to the front end, to the Next.js app, and show it. And also you'll see how you can integrate all the functions, all the analysis that we have in the server side with the LLM that we have in the Next.js app, so it can automatically also call these analyses from the front end. Make sure that you subscribe. There are more interesting videos coming. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.